Welcome to SEC Football Live here on the 440 Sports Network and that SEC podcast. His name is Michael Bratton. My name is Braden Gall, and we do appreciate you guys hanging out. The regular season, or I guess it is technically the regular season, is over. They used to count championship games as regular season and in the regular season statistics, but not anymore. SEC championship game is upon us. Georgia and Alabama. Mike, we got a lot to discuss today. We have two new coaches. We have a Heisman Trophy. We've got a bunch of coaches, I think, going into the hot seat next year. We've got some teams that need some congratulations, some fan bases that need talking off the ledge. There's a whole lot of stuff to do. How are you, man? Welcome back to Nashville, by the way. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, man. It's great. It's great to be out of the woods and back to civilization. I think I've eaten out every night since I've been back outside of Thanksgiving. And I'm ready. I'm ready to get some work done.
All right, so a lot of stuff to do today, and we'll try to move quickly. We'll try to get to your comments as well. And I want to start with the question you were not prepared for that I didn't tell you, but I was like, hey, I want to ask this to you, like, just live and see if you think anything's of it. And I was sort of looking at the top 9 teams that are going to be. I think Missouri's clearly number 9. I think the top 8 are pretty clear in college football. And I was looking at it, and I'm seeing the top 3 teams in the SEC, which I think are pretty clearly Alabama, Georgia, and Missouri. The best 2 teams in the Big Ten are Ohio State and Michigan. And Texas, a future SEC team. Quinn Ewers technically is a transfer, but not really, because the only reason he went to Ohio State was because the Texas state law on NIL hadn't been put in place yet. Otherwise, he would have gone to Texas. He graduated high school a half a year early. Essentially, 6 of the best 9 teams and the best 5 teams in the Big Ten and the SEC all have recruits as their starting quarterbacks. Is that purely anecdotal in your opinion? Because the ratio of Power 5 teams and in the SEC is about 65% of teams start a transfer. And I'm just curious if you think there's anything to that Brady Cook, Carson Beck, Jalen Milroe, all homegrown, Quinn Ewers largely homegrown. Obviously, there could be a guy who wins the Heisman at LSU that is a transfer. But these guys are all homegrown, and they're the best teams in the SEC. Is that just coincidence? Is that anecdotal? Is that a one-year thing? What do you think?
I think it's very complicated, and we can't just narrow it down to one thing, a recruit or a transfer, because I'm looking at your list here, and the guys that are recruits, I think most of them, same coach, right? Whereas like Bo Nix, he transferred because of a coaching change and then a coaching change at Oregon. Does that make sense? So I think it's a combination of coaches. I think it's looking at this list, I have to imagine every one of these guys has a nice NIL deal. So, I mean, I think that's a fact. I mean, I think it's many different things.
I'm just curious. I agree with you. It's always more complicated than just black or white, but I don't think it's a surprise that the ratio of the best teams, and oh, by the way, not one of those top 9 quarterbacks in college football, at the top 9 teams, I should say, not one of those guys transferred this year. They all have been in their system for more than a year, which I think there's something to note in that department as well. So I don't know. Again, it doesn't mean that, I'm not sure what it means. I just thought it was interesting, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it because I still think you have to build through recruiting. I don't think Sam Pittman's going to fix his offensive line issues with the portal. I don't think you can fix offensive line problems with the portal. You can fix your quarterback problem, but I don't know. The best 5 teams and the best 6 teams, maybe in the best 2 conferences, if you count Texas as an SEC team, are all doing it with guys that are largely homegrown players. And so I don't know.
But we could go a little bit step further, and I'm looking at the rankings like Ole Miss transfer, Oklahoma transfer, LSU transfer, Notre Dame transfer,
and none of those teams got to where they wanted to be. I don't know. I think that's probably a jump too far. I don't think there's a connection there. But I mean, if you look in just the SEC, I mean, like we can go around the horn here, and it's just loaded with transfers. And some of them didn't play particularly well or didn't maybe achieve what fans expected them to. Graham Mertz got much better at Florida than he was at Wisconsin. So I just wanted to ask you, there's going to be some guys in the portal that are going to come to the SEC. Devin Leary didn't work. Joe Milton didn't work. Rattler took a step back, even though he was playing very good football. Graham Mertz got better. Jackson Dart was pretty good this year. Probably got better. I think for the middle of the pack in the SEC, I just think it's sort of a crapshoot. Is maybe what I'm getting at. I don't know. I think at the top you want your guy, and Jalen Hurts and Tua, and I would count Stetson Bennett as homegrown. I would count him as homegrown.
Let me ask you this then.
Out and come back.
Do you think Kirby has learned a lesson to where maybe he doesn't chase? I'm trying to think of who it would be, but
Cam Ward's going into the portal from Washington State. He's been rumored to have a ton of offers. He's a top 15-ish type of quarterback. Will Howard at Kansas State's a very good player. He's going into the transfer portal already as well. So
let's say KJ enters tomorrow. Do you think Kirby has learned his lesson to say, hey, they got some studs there too, and they had those guys, and they still went after JT Daniels, Jamie Newman, Caleb Williams, and that didn't. None of those guys worked out. It was the guy they often looked over.
Yeah, and I know that, and somebody said, Avery said you wouldn't count Stetson as homegrown. Stetson is sort of a unique beast all into himself. He doesn't really fit into any category, but he is clearly he went to Georgia out of high school. So by definition, he technically was a recruit. I don't think you need to go after KJ Jefferson because you've built a machine of recruiting good players. It's the way Nick Saban used to do it at quarterback. I think Jacob Coker is the only, unless I'm drawing a total blank, I think Coker is the only transfer in that I can think of that has won the national championship.
What about?
Joe Burrow's a big one. Joe Burrow's a big one.
What about the guy from Miami that wasn't Alabama enamored with him about a year ago?
Dyke. Tyler Van Dyke is into the portal as well, but I don't think he's very good. So,
he's okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. I saw him go up and down the field against A&M. That's the only game I watched.
Yeah, and then
this year.
Miami people were very happy that he got benched later in the year. So if KJ goes into the portal, which I think is a possibility, that's also a big name that I would assume draws a lot of attention and financial incentive. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out there. A lot of stuff to get to. Again, we're going to talk Mike Elko to Texas A&M, Jeff Lebby. Got a lot of stuff on Jeff Lebby. I am fascinated by Jeff Lebby to Mississippi State. Just as a college football fan, I can't wait to watch. I think there's some big picture conversations that need to happen around Tennessee. Hot seat in 2024 is absolutely loaded in this conference. But let's start with, first of all, I just want to I don't know what you guys were doing on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. I had my wife and I were on the couch with my 7-year-old daughter, and she got to stay up later than the 5-year-old to watch the end of the Iron Bowl. And we were kind of like, in delay, like watching it in kind of like a couple of minutes behind. Right. So I don't use Twitter anymore when I'm watching the games. I like to just kind of sit down and watch. And my 7-year-old's super into SEC football, so I'm indoctrinating her. But I fell off the couch laughing. I just fell off the couch. I was just laughing so hard. And that's all I could do when Isaiah Bond catches that pass in the back of the end zone and Jalen Milroe makes that play. And I'm just laughing. And my first thought is couldn't happen to a nicer guy, to Hugh Freeze. They called a timeout. To design a play in which you spy a quarterback from 31 yards away from the end zone. I don't understand that. And I thought Auburn was the better team, or at least earned their point total and the fact that they had the lead. But I don't know. Like, now the end of the montage no longer ends with the kick six. It ends with Gravedigger, man. And I could not. My daughter's like, why are you laughing? And I was like, I can't explain to you the entire intricacies and dynamics of the Hugh Freeze coaching career. I can't.
Yeah, fourth and 25 was also Hugh Freeze. I kind of forgot about that.
Oh, I know.
It's
the most Hugh Freeze thing of all. And it's Auburn fans. Look, they're going to be good. They're going to be better. And certainly they played their best 2 games in losses this year to Georgia and Alabama. But this is the same guy who would beat Alabama one week and then lose to Memphis the next week, right? Or like this is what Hugh Freeze is. Like, you got to be used to this and you got to be prepared for it. They're going to be good. They're going to be 8-9 win-ish good. I don't think that they're ever going to get past that. And I think they might have a couple 10-2 seasons, but they're going to have 10-2 seasons where they lose to like Mississippi State and Arkansas. You know what I mean?
Man, we just got some devastating news in the comment. I'm sorry to hear that, Taylor. Man
What
lost
happened?
his job. He said we are his lone bright spot. Look, can we try to pick him up at all with Arkansas? What is
Where did that sorry, I didn't see that happen in the comments there, but
can we
well,
give this
that
man
sucks, Taylor.
one thing to be excited about for Arkansas? We got to try to lift this man up.
All right, we're going to move our hot seat conversation right to the front. Here's the one thing I would say, Mike, about Sam Pittman. First of all, I think he got the extra year because he's a great guy. I think when you are good to people, you are given an extra chance. And maybe the fans don't like that. But here's what I would say. You know how much debate we have over coaches? You know, Mike, like, are we sure about this hire? We don't know about Jeff Lebby. We're not sure about Mike Elko. We think it's this. We're going to grade the hire. Oh, is Billy Napier on the hot seat? Like, I find it comforting to be in a situation, if I'm an Arkansas fan, that you just are going to know the answer. Does that sound weird? Like, they're either going to bounce back and be really good and you're going to enjoy your football team and you're going to get to know exactly that Sam Pittman is the right guy who can handle hiring a staff and rebuilding a roster and can manage a really complicated and deep SEC schedule. Or you're not.
Right. And to your point, I mean, and we all do this, so I'm not picking on Arkansas or anybody, but it's like, we got this pie in the sky. I mean, like A&M thought they were getting Ryan Day for a minute. You know what I mean? Like there's always
that's ridiculous.
There's this elite coach out there that's going to come in here and fix everything. And
you end up with Jeff Lebby?
No comment on that right quick. But I mean, I had John Neighbors on my show and I was telling him that I had heard that it's a guy's name, Rhett Lashley. Like that was kind of the guy that they're looking at if they made a move on Sam Pittman. And
that's so uninspiring.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's who you're getting. You're not getting I don't know, insert a name here. I mean, not even Gus Malzahn, Dan Mullen, which I don't even know if retread is the way you want to go either. But
I would take Gus Malzahn at Arkansas in 2 seconds, and I think he would do a pretty good job. I don't think you're winning national championships at Arkansas, though. So if that's your standard, this isn't 1963 anymore. But I do think that I don't know. I think Gus Malzahn's a pretty damn good coach. Like, you don't beat Nick Saban multiple times and also go to the national championship game. That's the part of the resume Hugh Freeze is missing.
Now you're getting depressing again. All right, let's spin it positive.
Arkansas is one of the best fan bases in all of college football. They have extraordinary resources. They're going to get to recruit Texas more because of the Texas-Oklahoma thing.
How about this, though? Because I think this is more important than any of that. Pittman has made 4 coordinator hires, and I think 3 of them have been great to outstanding. Now, one was awful.
But I would put Kendall Briles in the 50-50 category.
Oh no, he was great. If we could just swing it back to another great hire, okay. I think we're good at offensive coordinator.
I think this is not. I have a tough time not just being a realist here. I think it's going to be hard to find the guy.
This needs positivity, not realism.
Well, okay, then here. Okay, here's because I think it's hard to hire a coordinator when you're clearly this much on the hot seat. I just think it is. It's just hard. But I think what you can do is you can be risky, right? You can take a bigger risk. You can shoot for like maybe a riskier candidate, and I don't mean like risky like off the field issues. I mean risky like unproven.
Right.
Like find that guy that is. That nobody's quite thinks is ready yet, but you're willing to take a chance on because you think you see something in his offense.
Kind of like Travis Williams.
Yeah, sure.
It's probably a good example, don't you think?
Austin Armstrong was supposed to be that for Florida, and they finished 122nd in yards per play on defense. So, but that's the kind of guy I think you have the freedom to maybe be riskier with the hire. I also think if you're an Arkansas fan, and I think this goes to, I think Billy Napier at Florida as well. Which is, I think we are in a situation. I find it comforting to be in a situation as a fan to just be in a year where we are just going to learn the exact truth. Like Florida's either going to win 7 or 8 games or 9 games, and it's going to be, oh yes, all the positive things you like about Billy Napier are real, or they're going to go 5-7 and 6-6 again, and you're going to be like, oh, all the negative things about Billy Napier are real. You know what I mean? Like you're
Right.
you're in a moment where it's definitive now. And I think at Arkansas, because you've kept him, it is definitive. And you haven't hired a guy that worked for Art Briles for 9 years, like Jeff Lebby.
Mm-hmm. How about Chris's comment here? In 6 years, Elko will win an SEC title and a Natty. But maybe let's hold off on Natty because we got to.
Got to win a division first.
Well, there's
I
no
guess
more
no, that's true.
divisions.
There's no more division. I keep screwing that up.
We got to win a conference title before we can talk national champion. In 6 years, if Mike Eklo, does he win an SEC championship? What are the odds you're giving him?
I mean, I think
0 out of 100. 0 unlikely. 100 it's happening.
God, he could be a really good coach and not win one. So it took how long did it take Kirby to win an SEC championship? 20. What was the first year he won the SEC title? Because he lost in 2017 in the playoff, but didn't he win? He beat Auburn in the SEC championship game. I feel like, right? Is that the? I feel like that's what it was.
Yeah,
I think he should. I think he should have one. I think he should have an SEC championship in the first 6 years because the A&M team is. This roster is one of the top 5 rosters in America going into next season.
Wait, Kirby did it in year 2, didn't he?
was 17 year 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Michael says, yeah, they beat. That was a 2-loss Auburn team that won all those games. I listen. I think, I think he's got the roster to do it. If he's the real deal, I think he's competing for an SEC spot in the SEC championship game quickly.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's more about are you competing for it? Like, are you close? That's more important to me.
What's the number 0 out of 100 though that he wins? I give him
an SEC championship, 60%, 65%. I don't know.
75. I have 75%.
So you like that? I mean, I like the hire a lot because it's different than anything they've done since like basically R.C. Slocum. And the pup agrees with I think what's interesting. Yes, and Bo points this out. They aren't hitting the portal right now. Evidence that A&M made the right hire. Also, it could be evidence that you wrote really good NIL contracts. We're going to talk. Let's talk. We can get. I want to talk Georgia, Alabama, but let's talk Elko and Lebby here because Mike Elko has been hired. 16-9 at Duke, 9 wins first season right away. Excellent. 4 years as the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. Their defenses went from 72nd in the nation to 35th in the nation to 34th in the nation to 6th in the nation under Mike Elko in yards per play. He's kept Elijah Robinson, of course, which I think is huge. They've basically tried everything. They tried a former NFL coach. They tried a rising group of 5 coach. They tried a retread national championship coach. And now they just sort of hired a regular guy. And I think the regular guy is what they needed because here's the thing that I really like about the Elko hire. And number one, the stories you hear about how practice was different under Jimbo Fisher for the offense and for the defense. Like he's the complete opposite personality type of Jimbo Fisher. And he's extremely organized. The defenses at Duke, the culture building, like all that sort of stuff that you need to be good at. He's very, very good at. I think what's interesting about Elko, Mike, is you don't have to be an elite recruiter anymore in the highest levels of college football if you have an elite NIL structure and system, right?
I think that's fair. And they clearly have that at A&M. But again, that's my least concern with. I don't care if they hired Art Briles. I think they'd be able to recruit really well. You know what I mean? Because it's A&M and all this. And I threw him out there because I think he's the worst example that you could hire of someone there's going to be backlash. But so talent's not going to be an issue. They've just had piss poor coaching. And hell, I thought the offense looked with some guy I never even heard of, Jalen Henderson. I thought the offense looked fun and exciting as soon as they got rid of Jimbo's ass, you know? So, just stop handcuffing your system, your offense, your skill talent. That's what they've been doing. So that's why I'm so excited. And the coach effect for Mike Elko is off the charts. It's a 180 from what Jimbo was doing at A&M. Now that doesn't mean they're going to win the national championship year 1 or anything crazy, but A&M under Jimbo, you're losing games you shouldn't be losing based on your talent. And I'm specifically thinking of, losing damn near every time against these Mississippi schools, which I'm not trying to be disrespectful to them, but A&M's got significantly more talent than any of them. Games like Tennessee, I never felt that they were going to win once we saw them on the field. But I think the opposite is going to occur under Elko, where you're consistently going to win those games. And then the games against Bama, Georgia, and Texas, I think they're going to win their, upset their fair share under Mike Elko, because that's what he did at Duke.
I agree. I think maximizing your talent is the key with a guy who is an adult. You need to be like an adult CEO at a place like Texas A&M. And I think they hired like a mature human adult. I think that is what's interesting to me about this, because you can let, like, the whole Stoops thing is fast. Because I think Mike Elko and Mark Stoops are basically the same person. Like, I don't see them as ultimately largely all that different. They are culture, organized, leadership, development, mature adults who are defensive coaches. They even kind of look the same in the face. like I think they kind of hired, like, that's, I don't, what's weird is I don't know if Mark Stoops can win at the highest levels. I think it's fair to say we don't know if Mike Elko can do that either, but I think he's going to give Texas A&M as good a shot as they could have hired in this group.
Well, I'm glad you referenced Stoops, because you're not foolish enough to believe that he turned down A&M, are you?
Oh no, but he's also not the Greg. It's also not the Greg Schiano thing that Tennessee did either. Like Mike Elko is the Mike Leach of that story, not the Jeremy Pruitt of that story.
Right, but I heard it said perfectly. Mark Stoops got caught at the restaurant with his girlfriend.
Yeah, I know.
If I'm Kentucky, that's what happened.
I would also argue, if I'm a Kentucky fan, be careful what you wish for. I think if I'm a Kentucky fan, I am panicked this morning if Mark Stoops has left. I think that guy, you and I have argued about Mark Stoops enough. We're not going to continue it, because I don't think he can win a national championship at a place like Texas A&M, where you have to be like sort of a next tier coach. Mike Elko at least might be able to do that. But I think at Kentucky, he's a great, that's what, 8 winning seasons out of 9. And the only one was a pandemic year. I don't know. I don't think no other coach has ever done that at Kentucky. I think if Kentucky fans are telling you they wish he would have gone, I think they're lying. And I think they would have woken up the next morning wishing that they would not have ended the relationship because they saw him at a restaurant with another girl.
Especially after his NIL comments and all this. I don't know. I mean, he's been looking for a way out, and he saw it, and he tried to take it, and now he's back.
But also you got to be stupid kind of not to turn, like, I don't know. He's been frustrated with the administration at Mitch Barnhart and Kentucky and the NIL stuff and the state laws and the recruiting, and like they've given him everything else to succeed from a facility standpoint. But
did you see what this guy? It was 2 a.m. closing time.
Look, when the lights come on, when the lights come on at the bar, you got to make a choice, man. You got to make a choice. You take what's available to you at 2 a.m. at the bar. No, I've had a lot of my Tennessee buddies be like, "Oh, look, I guess this was the Schiano moment." It's like, no, I think that they were close to a deal, and then they had another meeting, and they decided, and this is kind of from what I understand, like, look, I think this isn't necessarily the way we want to go. I have some questions about X, Y, or Z. And what I find ironic is that they hired Mike Elko, who to me is basically Mark Stoops 2.0 and might be a little bit better, but they're basically the same person. Like, they even look the same. They have the exact same track record. Their entire personality is similar in terms of how they build an organization. And so I find that to be funny. But Elko has experience in College Station, and I think he's got a little bit more upside, and Texas A&M will give him the resources and the players to do it. So if I'm an A&M fan, I'm excited, because I think the last time they hired somebody that was on staff was R.C. Slocum, I think. And I think that's it's the winningest coach in A&M history. So they've tried a bunch of they tried to hire the Alabama coach. They tried to hire an NFL coach. They tried to do all this stuff, and it didn't work for 25 years. And so now I think they've just hired a guy who's like a good ball coach who just is going to.
Now, what about Jeff Lebby? You seem pretty excited. Something there.
So I'm excited about Jeff Lebby just to watch it happen. I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty wild. They're, the reception and carrying around the AD. I've never seen anything like it.
So this is so complicated to me, and I spent all morning trying to think about what's the right way to approach this, because he learned everything he possibly could about being a head coach or a coach in college football from Art Briles at Baylor from 2008 to 2016. He was there the entire time Art Briles was there. So he knew every single thing that was happening behind the scenes with that godforsaken piece of shit that was running the Baylor program. However, if all you learned was how to run an offense, Art Briles is a brilliant X's and O's coach, like Urban Meyer, a brilliant X's and O's coach, kind of a trashy human being. So if Jeff Lebby only learned how to run a program on the field from Art Briles, then it's a positive. What I find interesting is that the athletic director, Zach Selman, what I have been told, who was at Oklahoma when Lebby was hired as the offensive coordinator, what I was told is that the vetting process to get Lebby hired at Oklahoma was very complicated, that it was very difficult, that it almost didn't happen. And that when it got done like the day before they announced it, 2 days before they announced it, the vetting process, and he didn't exactly endear himself through that process by bringing Art Briles onto the sideline of the football team. So I think that's all interesting stuff. I think there's been a falling out with him and Lane Kiffin based on what I know about how that ended at Ole Miss. So I think there are some interesting dynamics to keep track of. I think his offense is going to be pretty darn good. I mean, I don't think it's as unique as everyone thinks it is, because a lot of these teams in the SEC are running this offense now. And I don't think it beats the best teams with the best players. I think it gives them a baseline of quality football every single game. But I don't think I'll say the same thing about all the other offenses that are running this. I don't, you've got to evolve it. I was also told by somebody, and this is the good news for Mississippi State fans. I was told by somebody that they believe he's a better organizer, leader, and recruiter than he is play caller. So if he decides to hand off play calling duties, which I think,
how would anyone know that?
Just people that are around him. So if you believe his, well, no, you can see how, like, he was big time responsible for the NIL stuff that happened at Oklahoma. So he's absolutely been an excellent recruiter. So we know that, that his leadership skills, that players love him, that people respond to him around him, that all that stuff, like, that's sort of the organizational stuff that, as much as you can be as a coordinator, that is very positive when you talk to people that have worked around him and been around him. I'm curious if he hands off play calling duties, just like I'm curious who Mike Elko hires as a coordinator. I don't think it should be Bobby Petrino. I think Bobby Petrino is very good, but I think you need a clean break here if you're Mike Elko. I think if I'm Lebby, I don't want to be the guy calling the plays on offense. I think I want to hire a good coordinator.
He's already come out and said he's calling plays.
I know. I don't like that. I think that's dangerous. I think you're asking that's a lot of water to tread when you're trying to learn how to be a CEO at the same time. You know what I mean? Like Billy Napier. Mm-hmm. What do you always say about Billy Napier?
He sucks.
That it's just a lot to be the play caller and the head coach in the SEC. It's a lot. And if you're from what I've been told, very good organizationally, very good leadership, players respond to him, good recruiter, great at the NIL space at Oklahoma. If that's all true, then I would hire somebody to be the coordinator. I would hire a really, really good defensive coordinator. And then I think Mississippi State fans I think you should expect 8 to 9 wins. I think that is his upside if he does everything right.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the defense too, because the places running that offense, they have pretty average to below average defenses. And I think at least what he's inheriting, he'll have by far the worst defensive talent of any of the teams that are running that scheme. So it's hard to attract a good defensive coordinator to pair up with that scheme.
It is.
So that's a concern. And Mississippi State's always prided itself on the defense.
Eric, I don't
know.
I agree with you. Eric, what does this mean? Enough with this transitive property arguments. They are circular and never ending and prove nothing. I'm not sure what that, I'd like a little bit more clarity on that, Eric, from what you mean by that.
They're arguing about Missouri, Ole Miss, and who would win.
Okay. Missouri's better. Ole Miss is but also Ole Miss is damn good. So they're both great. I think you used the phrase on your show today, like home run or total failure for Jeff Lebby. My issue with that is how do you define that at Mississippi State? I think a home run at Mississippi State is 8 or 9 wins and like a really entertaining offense. I think what Dan Mullen did and Mike Leach, I think those are offensive minds that created really interesting and fun teams to watch. But like, you're probably never going to get. I don't know if you can ever get better than like 9-4 or 8-4 or 9-3 or 10-10. I mean,
I think a home run at Mississippi State is having a winning record over Lane Kiffin. Let's start there.
Sure,
that would be one, and then being competitive in damn near every SEC game. It doesn't mean winning them all, but being competitive. We got to stop with these. When Alabama and Georgia plays them, it's like they're playing Vanderbilt. We can't ever have that, and upsetting at least one upset every year in conference play, and winning your non-conference. I think that's a home run at Mississippi State, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that's what Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky, but I think that makes sense.
He never upsets anybody worth a shit.
I just beat a top 10 team, but that's okay. I think what's interesting about Lebby, when you talk about all the Baylor stuff and the vetting process and the fact that this could also go the other direction in a very positive way for Mississippi State. Number one, fans don't give a shit if you win. So they don't care. And unfortunately, they don't care if whatever you did or didn't cover up at Baylor, nobody cares, unfortunately, if you're a winner. So if you're winning big, nobody cares. But I think the real interesting thing is that if Zach Selman, the athletic director, was a huge part of the vetting process to get him hired at Oklahoma, which he was, like, part of the response I've gotten from the industry is, man, they're surprised they hired him because the vetting process was so difficult at Oklahoma. But doesn't that mean he also knows everything there is to know? And he's fine with signing off on hiring him and putting his job on the line to hire Jeff Lebby. So I find it to be just utterly fascinating from a bunch of different standards. Like, he's a good recruiter. He's got a decent offense. I think there is a ceiling at Mississippi State with him. But what's going to be really fun is Egg Bowl trash talk on Twitter.
What happens if they win like 4 games next year? I mean, hell, we just gave the last guy 10 games and his ass was gone.
Well, wasn't he sort of an interim though, in general? Like, even though they removed interim.
Yeah, no, that's fair, but I don't know. I just don't, particularly at Mississippi State. I mean, I'm not a fan of hiring someone that's never been a head coach.
I tend to agree, but it doesn't mean that they're all bad. Dan Mullen was never a head coach, and he was the best coach in Mississippi State history. Mm-hmm. Mark Stoops was never a head coach. He's been the best head coach in Kentucky history. Like, it doesn't mean that these guys aren't good. It's rarer to find them and harder to find them. Chris Brown says, do you think Derek Mason would be a better D coordinator at Tennessee than Tim Bakes? Now, I know Derek Mason personally. I like Derek Mason, the man, the person. I do not particularly love his broadcast style. But I don't know. Maybe he's better. We'll get to Tennessee in just a second.
Oh, wait, one thing. I'm just throwing up Mississippi State's schedule.
Oh, thanks. I love it when you do that over my face, by the way.
You tell me how many they're going to win next year with a first-year head coach.
Arizona State's going to be tougher because
at Arizona State, too.
Arizona State will be improved, but they're not very good.
So let's give them 3 of the non-conference.
Toledo, UMass. Wait. Mississippi State plays Ole Miss. Oh, that's right, because it's not ordered yet. Okay, I was like, that's not right. They're not going to play Ole Miss in week 5.
Ole Miss, at Georgia, Arkansas at home. You got to win that one. Florida at home. You just hope Billy Napier's fired by then. Maybe you'll beat the interim.
They play at Texas.
Mizzou at home.
Man.
A&M at home. At Tennessee. At Texas. I mean,
6-6 would be a hugely successful year in year 1. But I mean, we would have said the exact same thing about Shane Beamer though in year 1 at South Carolina, and then he went and kind of overachieved. So, yeah, Pittman, but yeah, Pittman was never a head coach, and he was there. Oh wait, never mind. I like that. No, there's a lot more examples of guys failing. I just think, I don't know. There are, we mentioned it. John Summerall at Troy, Kane Womack at South Alabama, Willie Fritz, Jamie Chadwell. There's lots of guys who have been head coaches that could have done it. And they went with Zach Selman, hired a guy he knows. This is very Danny White hiring Josh Heupel. This is this is the guy I used to work with, and I know him really well, so I'm going to bring him with me. And that is what this is. And it could be really excellent. I think it's going to be fascinating to track no matter what. That's what I find interesting. It could all blow up in their face. It could be Baylor scandal, offense too not good enough, no, can't hire a coordinator, no organizational skills, no experience. Could all explode in their face. Or really interesting offense, good organizational guy, good leader, good recruiter, maximizes NIL, and fans don't give a shit about what he did or didn't do at Baylor. So I think it's fascinating no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to move on to the hot seat in 2024?
Fire everybody.
Yeah. What number does Sam Pittman need to get to keep his job in your mind?
6-6.
They keep him around if he goes 6-6 next year?
Probably, yeah. Because again, go check out interview with John Neighbors. But he said they're going to be an underdog in every game. So, well, he said every G5 game. So, I mean, that would be like 5 upsets. 4 or 5 upsets. Yeah, I think you'd keep him at that.
Okay. Clark Lee. How many games? Clearly a step back for Vanderbilt. They have a lot bigger view of athletics. They're finally investing in football for the first time in like 50 years. Mm-hmm. Do you think Clark Lee is in danger next year? Does he need a couple of SEC wins to keep his job? Bounce back to 5 wins?
We have to at least win one conference game. You know what I mean? We can't be shut out again. Yeah, and they've had 2 more quarterbacks enter the portal.
Yeah, they've got a lot of guys going in and out of the portal for Vanderbilt.
Now, don't you think that, and maybe I'm wrong here, but credit Stephen Lasson for educating me on this, but these guys in the Ivy League or whatever, they run out of eligibility. I mean, it'd be kind of sad if they had an Ivy League roster, but some of those guys maybe want to test themselves at the SEC, like go get the best Ivy League quarterback. And
well, their general manager is a former Yale safety and a friend of mine.
he's got to know that league. There's got to be some players out there.
Think Barton could call up his buddies in the Ivy League and find out. Oh man, Shane Beamer is fascinating to me because he overachieved early, victim of his own success. I think this year they actually hit where I thought they would hit, but you talk about like the thing that I like about Shane Beamer is it's sort of like I need to combine Shane Beamer and Billy Napier into one human. Like Shane Beamer feels like a really good in-game manager. And part of the reason they won those 2 seasons and had wins was that he managed games really well, made good decisions, good special teams, etc. But I all the other stuff, like where's the development? Where's the coaching hires? Where's the I thought he's supposed to be a recruiting wizard. I mean, at least Billy Napier's the one who's doing the recruiting wizardry and developing a quarterback. And
I thought South Carolina I thought they were doing well in recruiting. Are they not?
I'm just saying in general, like I feel like
they got a top 20 class. Come on now.
That's like every other South Carolina coach. They finished 11th in the SEC in recruiting.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. It's a tough league. They got the best quarterback upcoming. That's what I keep hearing. Sellers.
I mean, there's a chance. I mean, so does Tennessee with Nico, and so does Florida with their 2 guys, and
right.
Everybody's got that guy. At least they think. I don't know what Shane Beamer does. If they go 6-6, is he fine next year? South Carolina fans, I hesitate to say at times irrational, maybe.
Mm-hmm. No, I think he's fine as long as he gets back to a bowl game.
Okay. Billy Napier, what's the number? 7?
Sadly, I think it's about the same. If he makes a bowl game.
Winning, I think if he has a winning record, that he's absolutely back. And he recruits another top 10 class. But if they go 5-7, he's out. And this is what I think should be refreshing to people at Arkansas and South Carolina and Florida. It's like if your guy doesn't do it next year, you have your answer. You don't need to stress about it. Right?
Remember when Florida had standards? Remember that time? Because it's been a while, I guess.
By standards, you mean like not murdering people?
No, not that. Okay. We don't care about that.
We don't care about
winning. We're trying to win damn games here.
I forgot we don't care about murder.
I mean, they fired coaches for a hell of a lot better seasons, you know?
God, what it makes me think about is the Ron Zook years. That's what it makes.
And here's their schedule next year. It's awful too.
Miami, Sanford, A&M, UCF, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida State, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, at Texas. Texas is going to come in here and fuck some shit up. Nobody ever thought we would say that about Texas. Nobody thought we were going to say that.
They might suck. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe they are, but like they are prepared to come into this league next year with a lot of talent, a very good defensive line, a quarterback, a coach who knows everything.
Now, were you surprised they're firing like Corey Raymond?
And they fired Sean Spencer as well, the code DC. Raymond's the guy that's sort of like their recruiting ace and sort of their DB developer. But here's the thing: is you cannot finish 5-7 at Florida in year 2 and have a terrible, terrible, terrible defense and not make some kind of change.
Right.
So maybe they're being forced into doing that in general.
To me, that's a good sign.
That Florida's demanding he make changes. Yeah, I agree.
Because Billy or whoever's saying this, that's not acceptable. You know,
I agree. The Florida defensively should never be bad. They should never be bad.
And not only were they bad, they were awful.
Yeah, they were terrible. And again, you hired the youngest coordinator. You know, you tied your future to Austin Armstrong. So while they had there's some things that he did better. He created more pressure. They were more aggressive, better at getting to the quarterback. I will say this about their 5-game losing streak, though. I mean, they are like a play or two away from being like a 7-5 team with like 2 really good wins and a dominating win over an arch rival in Tennessee. So Florida's utterly difficult to evaluate. Clear development of the quarterback, clearly developed a quarterback. The offense is solid. They're recruiting like crazy, but defense is terrible, and they still make stupid mistakes during the games. That's the part that bothers me, is the stupid mistakes during the games. That's my issue.
I mean, it's pretty normal to spit on someone, and
it's like throwing the shoe. It's like the Muschamp shoe throw. You know what I mean?
No, that was Mullen.
That was Mullen? That was Dan Mullen. My bad.
Yeah,
I get all the McElwain, Mullen, and Muschamp years confused.
Yeah, that was. Well, I thought we were done with that when we made changes. You know,
guys with the same number going on the field in week 1, and then
look, I shout out Jimbo for tuning in. He's got time. He'll bring it back. Jimbo Fisher says he'll bring Florida back to prominence.
Yeah, let's make sure that people listening on the podcast understand. It's Jimbo Fisher commenting on the show. I'll bring Florida back to prominence. He will bring them back some players. Yep. You want to hire Jimbo to recruit for a couple of years? Probably bring you back some real dudes. There's no question there. No, I find the Napier thing to be fascinating as well. But again, if you're a Florida fan, like, you're gonna know you've reached the point of the tenure where you don't have to have these debates on like sports talk radio, and you don't have to have hot takes about the coach. It's like we're all going to know if Sam Pittman's the answer, if Billy Napier's the answer, and we're all going to know if Shane Beamer's the answer. We're all going to know. It'll just happen right in front of us. So, all right. But here's what I will say. We came into this year with not a lot of talk about the hot seat. Everybody seems sort of stable and blah, 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 blah. Like, we didn't really exactly know how Zach Arnett was viewed. We know the Fisher stuff was always there, but this year I think you're walking into a season where there's a lot of pressure on a lot of coaches. I think it's different next year. So, is there
anything to be said for, and you would know better than I, because I don't follow these teams, but is there anything to be said for teams like Florida State and Michigan? And I'm sure there are other examples that their coaches were on the hot seat and certainly could have understood moves being made, yet they stuck with those guys and they're having career seasons. I realize Michigan, they went to the playoff last year too, so maybe it's not quite a career, but
2 years in a row.
Yeah, but I mean, would they have done that if they turned around and hired, I don't know, Mark Stoops after a 10-win?
Well, I don't think Jim Harbaugh was ever on the hot seat, and I don't know if Mike Norvell was ever on the hot seat. I think Miami, for example, Mario Cristobal could be on the hot seat going into next year. He needs to prove that he knows when to take a fucking knee. I don't know. I think I mean, where's Dabo at right now with Clemson? I think you have to look at the longer term guys and you say like Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State or Kirk Ferentz at Iowa or Dabo Swinney at Clemson. And you got to know when to evolve. And like, this is Jimbo Fisher's problem. Jimbo Fisher never evolved. He just was a guy who could recruit really, really well and talk a lot. He never evolved beyond any of that and grew into a more mature CEO and leader. And he never did it. Like Mike Gundy, Dabo Swinney, Kirk Ferentz, these guys have been around for 20 years. Like they've got to figure out ways to evolve. The beauty of Nick Saban is that he constantly evolves, constantly tries to change the rules of the game, evolves. Wants the game to be slower. Everyone says no. He says, fine, we'll go faster and we'll beat your ass that way. Like,
or maybe a better example for our audience, Drink. I mean, people, they have all forgotten that they wanted his ass fired.
Well, Stoops is exactly the same. 2-10, 5-7, 5-7. Patience and investment. I think patience and investment works at places like Missouri and Kentucky.
So isn't that the same deal at South Carolina? And we're kind of questioning whether
I think that's a fair comparison. No, I think you're right. I think you're right. Patience and investment is the way to go at South Carolina. I agree. Not at Florida, but at South Carolina.
And
not at A&M.
Maybe Vanderbilt. But I mean, it's been pretty awful. But
extra patience and extra investment, or just any investment at all, which apparently they have done now.
Right. Because I mean, let's say they turn around and hire. I mean, I don't have a clue, but let's say they turn around and hire Dow Loggins at Vanderbilt. You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be any better?
No,
it's not. That's the correct answer. You know?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that's a fair. I think Missouri with Drinkwitz and Stoops with Kentucky, their first 3 years are very similar. We think we're this, but we're not really sure. And both athletic directors, both organizations decided to stay patient and invest in their guys, and it paid off in year 4 for both of them. So I absolutely can see that. I think that's the right approach for Shane Beamer for sure. I totally agree with that. I agree with you there. I think you need to do that now with Jeff Lebby. And maybe this is your point about Sam Pittman, right? Like this is maybe the patience and the investment for Sam Pittman is what works. But we'll find out next year because Drinkwitz proved it, right? 10 wins. Mark Stoops proved it in year 4 when they started winning games. Like Shane Beamer's got to prove it now, but I agree with you. Patience and investment is very underrated at programs like that. All right. Georgia, Alabama. The point spread opened at 3.5. It's now up to 6 at time of taping on Tuesday. I want you to tell me what the biggest weakness is for each team and how the other team can exploit that weakness. Because I have my own opinions, but I want to hear yours first.
Damn it. Just stealing my own questions here. All right. Well,
you can ask me once you're done answering. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Biggest weakness is I don't see many weaknesses for Georgia. To be honest with you. Both of them. Now maybe they got caught looking ahead, but both of them you could kind of run on them more than I would think you could. Hell, I was surprised Auburn went. I wouldn't say went up and down the field on Alabama, but they kind of did with no passing threat whatsoever. So that was alarming. We've kind of seen some of the similar things with Georgia Tech and Mizzou and hell Tennessee for one play of the game. I mean, you can run on Georgia too. So
I don't think you can run. I don't think you can run on Georgia in the traditional sense. I think Cody Schrader is really the only one who did that all year. But here's what I will say, and this is going
to. Tech ran on them just last week.
I'm going to point that out in just a second. Peyton Thorne, 12 carries, 92 yards rushing for Auburn against Georgia. What position does he play?
He's a quarterback, I believe.
Brady Cook was sacked 3 times for 18 yards for Missouri, which means he had 7 carries for 57 yards rushing. What position does he play for Missouri?
I think he quarterback, if I was paying attention.
Haynes King, quarterback at Georgia Tech, to your point, had 8 carries for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. What position does he play?
Quarterback.
There you go. Jackson Dart, 6 carries, 37 yards rushing What position does he play for Ole Miss? Now that game was out of hand, but what position?
He's kind of a fullback, but quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely I think he's a pogue, not a kook, but whatever. Ultimately, you see my point. I think the weakness for Georgia, if there is one, because I don't think there is one, is what Milroe does better than everybody else. And that would be my area of concern if I'm Georgia, is the play breaking down and Jalen Milroe making plays with his legs. I think my concern for Alabama, do you have one? What's your concern for Alabama here?
Concern for Alabama. I think of the two teams, I think they significantly don't have near as good weapons as Georgia has, like a collection of weapons. I don't think they do compared to Georgia.
I think the running backs are. I would lean Georgia in every category, but I don't think the receivers for Georgia are significantly better than the guys for Alabama. I don't think the running backs are significantly better. I think Bowers is a difference maker. That's for sure. But I think Milroe's legs are a totally different thing than Beck brings to the table. Although Beck is more athletic than people think. To me, it's all about pressuring the quarterback. If you do not pressure the quarterback, I think Carson Beck will rip apart Alabama's secondary.
Right.
That's my concern.
Because they have too many weapons. You can't guard them all. You could take away 2 or maybe even 3 of them.
This is the way I think of Georgia's offense, and I don't know like how else to explain it. And I don't see it anywhere else in college football. It is an NFL offense.
Yeah.
It is an NFL offense with an NFL-style quarterback, with NFL-style weapons, running an NFL-style scheme that is modern, progressive, balanced. It's, to me, if you do not get Carson Beck off the spot and pressure him now, Alabama top 10 in the country in pressuring the quarterback, creating sacks. Georgia actually not nearly as good at creating sacks. I think they're 67th in the nation in sacks. So Alabama much better at pressuring the quarterback. But if Carson Beck has time to throw in the secondary, Alabama's toast.
Now, how about this? Because I guess we're just going to steal my questions from other interviews. But which coordinator is going to get the most heat on Saturday night? Mike Bobo or Tommy Rees?
Well, whichever one loses.
I know I guess that's what I guess that's what I'm asking you. Which offense struggles the most in this game?
I think it's like every other time we've seen Georgia and Alabama in the last 15 years in Atlanta. I think we are going to watch that game. 2012 Georgia Alabama, 2021 Georgia Alabama. There was another one. 2017 that Georgia lost, and then no, they beat. I can't remember when it was. 2018. They played another one in there. They basically, this will be the 4th time they've played. I know it was Mark Richt. 2018. Thank you, Michael. It was the next year because that's right. He beat Auburn. It's going to feel like the best 2 teams in college football on the field. That's what it's going to look like. You're going to watch it, and I think Tommy. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think Tommy Rees has gotten better as the season has gone along. I think Georgia fans, if they use their brains, know that Mike Bobo's offenses before he left were like the 3 of the best offenses in all of college football, and we're sort of casting dispersions on the wrong guy in that time when he left before becoming a failed Colorado State head football coach.
But these fans, they're not gonna blame Saban. They're not gonna blame Kirby. They're gonna blame these damn offense coordinators. Just watch.
Sure. Well, it's yeah. The most hated man on every team is the offensive coordinator, and the most beloved man on every team is the backup quarterback. That's just the way football works. I think Jalen Milroe can overcome his coordinator, for lack of a better answer to you. I don't know. I think it's a pretty low scoring, feel it out first half, and I think that shit opens up in the second half in a big way. I think Carson Beck stands in the pocket and makes a bunch of throws. I think Jalen Milroe runs around and makes a bunch of plays. I really believe we are in for a epic final possession, legitimate 2 best teams in the country potentially type of showdown. And I would take Bama plus the 6 right now, especially since that number's gotten bigger. I'd pick Georgia to win, but if I'm gambling, I'd take Bama in the points. I just think we are in for a a real big time, historically great football game. And I hope that's the case, because both teams, I think, were looking ahead a little bit last week.
Let's say Alabama wins in overtime or by a last second field goal or something like that. Should they both go to the playoff?
I believe they should. I don't think the committee may do that, depending on what happens. Like, I don't think Washington's a top 4 team.
They'll need help, basically. Is
yeah, I think Washington loses. I think Washington gets beat by Oregon.
Even if it's clear as day, these are the two best teams.
It could be as clear as day to you and I, but I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know how you leave. Like, here's the thing I don't understand about the anti-Alabama rankings, because I think Alabama's been underrated the entire year by the rankings. They have the best resume of almost anybody. Like, they have one of the best resumes in all of college football. A dominating win over a top 20 Tennessee, a dominating win over a top 10 Ole Miss, a dominating win over who am I now? I'm forgetting. Oh, they beat LSU by multiple scores in the fourth quarter. Like, they have a better resume than almost anybody. So I don't know how Bama, if they have another win over number 1 Georgia, I don't know how you leave them out. Like, Washington's not they're a really good football team. These are all really good teams, but I don't know. So I honestly, if you want chaos, you're rooting for Bama, but I don't know. Texas could lose. That means they're out. Florida State could lose. That means they're out. Washington loses, they're out, but then Oregon probably gets in. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the committee's going to do. This is the most chaotic final week of the regular season I can ever remember, going into the championship Saturday, and rankings. So yeah, I don't know what to expect. I don't know. You cannot leave Georgia out at this point. I got into a bunch of debates with my friends about Georgia versus Texas and Georgia versus Florida State if they lose. And I'm like, Georgia's clearly the best team in America right now. Like, a loss to a top 10 Alabama close. Why does that take them out of the playoff when all these other teams have just as many quote unquote bad performances? I don't know.
I got a hot take here. Georgia wins big.
Makes it easier for the committee.
They don't make the playoff because we gotta for overall fairness, we want a legitimate college football playoff, and the Georgia Bulldogs go on to the NFL playoff, and they'll probably win it.
I don't even know how to respond to that. No, there is no college football team that would ever win. There's no college football team.
Have you seen Georgia 29 in a row? Come on now.
But we'll get to Michael Kelly's comment in just a second, because I think it's a great comment, actually, and I find it to be utterly fascinating. I think the best. Which is the best Georgia team, last year or the year before? Which one was better? The year before? 2 years ago?
Better defense. I think better overall team last year.
I kind of agree with that. Whoever the best football team is in the history of college football, 2001 Miami maybe might be the best team I've ever seen. They would go 0-16 in the NFL.
I know. All right, because here's what I really think.
I want to answer his question about. Okay. He says, Braden, a few weeks ago you said everyone would be cheering for Bama in this game. Do you still feel that way? I think for some reason,
not Auburn people.
I think the playoff dynamic has changed how people will root for it. Like, if I'm a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan or an Oregon or Pac-12 fan, you want Alabama to lose now because I think you want it to be clean and easy, and there only to be one viable option from the SEC. So I think there's like playoff rooting interests, and then I think there is like, who do I just like? And maybe I was dead wrong about that. And then everybody's just like, nope, I see that script A and I can't do anything but hate it. But like, I don't know. Like, if Georgia wins, how many have they got? 29 in a row?
Yes, first sir. Team SEC record.
First team in SEC history to go 8-0 3 straight years. That's going to be pretty easily hateable eventually, if it's not already there.
I think I don't know if this is really that great of a comment, but this is my thoughts on the game.
I love it when you say that before you say things. It's like
Alabama barely wins, I'm out. I think those are the only two possibilities.
No, I disagree. I think it's a close game all the way. Nick Saban is the greatest halftime adjuster we've ever seen. His teams were unbelievably good in the second half this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like Georgia, like 17-7 at halftime. Alabama makes some adjustments. Jalen Milroe makes some plays, and it is a back and forth game in the entire second half. And whoever has the ball last might win. The key is if you can envision Carson Beck standing upright in the pocket for the majority of the game, Georgia will win. And the question is, what defensive scheme does Georgia have to stop Jalen Milroe's legs? That's ultimately what matters. And don't ask Auburn to do
it. Ask them how not to do it.
Unbelievable. I'm going to call a timeout, rush two guys, and then I'm going to spy you at the player 5 yards downfield on a 31-yard play. Like, no, you either blitz that guy or you drop him into coverage so you don't have a guy in one-on-one in the back of the end zone. Unfucking believable.
I feel a little bad doing this because the season's not even over, but did you have any thoughts on this leaked 2024 games?
They're pretty good. They're pretty awesome. You can take that down if you could take that down. The Texas A&M on Thanksgiving is all that matters. That's the only one that really matters. All the other games are absolutely spectacular. Bama's defense isn't that good.
No, I don't think that's the only one that matters. Oklahoma, Tennessee, first SEC game for Oklahoma. Josh Heupel.
I just mean they're all great. I just mean they're all great. Like they're all elite.
A lot going on there.
They're all elite games, but the one that timing matters to me is Texas A&M. I've been to two of those games. I went to two Texas A&M games in middle school. Those two games that game belongs on Thanksgiving weekend. Otherwise,
we may have
Egg Bowl staying on Thanksgiving
Georgia weekend. At Texas, or we do have it, but we may have that may be Arch Manning. How about that? These two finalists.
Talk about
that's interesting.
Talk about knowing how to organize and manage your program. Steve Sarkisian has managed his quarterback room better than anybody I've seen in a long time. Not a single negative word about Arch Manning transferring or discontent or any of that stuff. Just, hey, we're gonna one win away from the playoff.
How about this? With
Braden, I'm sorry. Braden hasn't been watching much Bama this season. Bama's defense isn't that good.
What you been doing, Braden?
Obviously not watching any Alabama.
With Texas and Texas A&M on Thanksgiving, that clearly opens up LSU. Do they bring that back to Arkansas LSU annually in that week?
That's not bad. That's not a bad idea. The Golden Das Boot. That's not bad.
But then we finally have some steam here on Mizzou, Arkansas. So what do we do with that?
You're not going to make everybody happy with the 16-team conference.
But I guess
not possible.
I guess Oklahoma, Missouri that week would make sense, don't you think? Because they're not playing Oklahoma State anymore, unfortunately.
Okay, well, we got all offseason to talk about this. I want one more comment about Tennessee because I wanted to ask you this all along. Because I can't believe
fire them.
I can't believe the Tennessee people how they're acting about this season. First of all, which bottle of whiskey are you buying me? Because I think the bet was, is it Blanton's? Are you getting me a bottle of Blanton's? No free shouts?
Blanton's. I can't afford that.
After a couple of months in the mountains, you should have high cash flow. The bet between Michael and I was 9 wins is a push, 10 wins I owe him a bottle of whiskey, 8 wins he owes me a bottle of whiskey, and he owes me a bottle of bourbon. So I need to know which one you're offering. But here's my question. There are since 2007, 3 Tennessee quarterbacks have won 8 regular season games. Josh Dobbs, Hendon Hooker, and Joe Milton. For this program to win 8 games during a rebuilding year, I think is a huge statement about what Josh Heupel has built in Knoxville, where this program is and how far they have come. I think it is absurd that people think Nico Iamaleava as a freshman would have won them more games. I think that is utterly ridiculous. I am glad that I'm absolutely ecstatic that Josh Heupel handled Nico the way he did, got him his 4 different games of reps, is going to allow him to build strength in the offseason, play in the bowl game, play in the practice, and come back and be ready to start next year, which he does look like he is going to be ready to start next year. It doesn't mean he is giving you he is not going to beat Alabama on the road or make up for 40 points against Georgia or 30 points against Missouri. It is absurd that people think that Nico would have made some difference this year. It's stupid. I'd much rather have Nico as a redshirt freshman last year. Did I say his name wrong?
I don't think so. I think you nailed it.
Nico Iamaleava. Now I screwed it up. Nico Iamaleava. Here's the thing. This was a rebuilding year and they could win 9 games. Do you know how long ago 9 games was a celebration of this football program? It's not a great year, but it wasn't supposed to be a great year. It was a rebuilding year after an elite season the year before, and it's all trending towards 24 and 25. I don't understand what's hard to understand about this.
I guess you just have a loser mentality, my friend, because I'm trying to see who they beat. That's worth anything.
Or you don't know how to read.
A&M, who fired their coach. These are our wins that we're happy about. They didn't play anybody in the non-conference. I don't know. I guess I just got a higher standard. They should be better. And
they should have been better the last 15 years. But a bunch of dumb decisions screwed up the program.
The coach they have now is supposed to be an offensive mastermind here. And had he masterminded again, maybe would have got more than 7 against Missouri and 10 on Georgia, 16 on Florida, 20 on Alabama. That you basically had I think you had all that the first half.
The Florida game is a huge disappointment that I put on Josh Heupel and the offense. The Missouri game is more about Missouri being better, and because Drink has had an extra year, 2 extra years to recruit, or an extra year to recruit. That won't happen next year. He doesn't have that excuse. That game's going to be at home, and he will have built the entire roster. I think it's fair to ask questions about Tim Banks, but I think those are the exact same questions I had when they hired him. I think the talent needs to continue to get better, but this was a quote-unquote down year, a rebuilding year, and they're going to win. Potentially, they're going to shoot for 9 wins. And as I've already said, only 2 other quarterbacks since 2007, that's 16 years, have won 8 regular season games for Tennessee, and his name's Josh Dobbs and Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton is the third.
Yeah, you picked the worst years in program history, Braden.
That's what Josh Heupel was building out of, though. That's just a fact. So the fact that he has a rebuilding year is an 8-win regular season, which is something that's only happened 2 other times in 15 years, is a huge step forward for the program. I don't understand why that's hard to understand. Next year, pressure. Real pressure next year. Real pressure.
Loser mentality. No, I mean that's fair points, but
goddamn right they're fair points. It's just facts.
I don't think this season is anything to be celebrated.
I didn't say you should celebrate this season. I didn't say you should celebrate. I said you should have some perspective and context about where this program is coming from and where it's going to.
I mean, to go from 50 points per game to 34.
Oh, they don't play next year? Holy shit, I'm going to have to get used to this. Eric just said Braden, Tennessee, and Mizzou don't play at 24. Oh, man, I'm going to have to get used to just automatically memorizing the schedules. That's going to be so much more complicated. I'm ready for it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think this was a rebuild year.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Their over-under was 9.5. I bet you a bottle of whiskey they would go 8-4. This was a second-place team, best-case scenario, with a quarterback who was a bridge quarterback. They lost an all-pro, an all-rookie of the year caliber left tackle, 2 NFL receivers. Their defensive depth chart is still nowhere near as good as Georgia and Alabama's. They were always going to lose those 2 games. They screwed up against Florida, and they're 1 play away from having a 9-3 season last year. They were ahead of schedule last year. They were on schedule this year. Next year is the pressure year. Next year is pressure to take a step forward. You have to be better than 8-4 next year. That is the expectation. And the schedule gets harder probably, right? So
I'm sure, yeah.
I can't
at
remember
Oklahoma.
At Oklahoma. Old Josh Heupel.
That you don't want to talk about it, but
I love all these people telling me how I got it right. I think I actually, here's the thing. If I'm a Tennessee fan, a couple extra pounds, some extra pork chops, some bowl practices, some reps in the bowl game, spring practice. I think from what I have seen so far and who I've talked to, I think you can allow yourself to get excited about what he could be next season. I think that's okay. His arm is clearly better than Joe Milton's, but it's not there yet. He needs a whole offseason of development. But man, I think it's okay to get excited about it.
I'm a little concerned that Heupel keeps hiring all these buddies.
Well,
that'd be the big red flag for me.
That's every industry in all of American society, Mike.
I don't know.
They're all loyal to a fault.
Right. Well,
it'd be nice to have Alex Golesh back on the staff, though.
You got to be different, like you said.
I agree. It's hard to. These coaches are loyal to a fault. So, all right. I want to say, Jaden Daniels, you probably have the Heisman one if Oregon doesn't do something spectacular. If Bo Nix does something spectacular and beats Washington and gets into the playoff, I think Bo Nix is going to win the award.
Auburn sure as hell could have used him.
Their passing offense was too good this year. They don't need him. Good passing offense.
Would Auburn have won the West with Bo Nix?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think they have the exact same plan for 25 before it turns into 26 when they have to have a more set schedule. I think they have a 2-year. Eric says, gentlemen, what will the SEC do with the schedule?
No, I think it's just 1 year. Right now, it's just 1 year.
Well, they have not announced if it's the 6-3 model yet, which is what they need to do and what they're going to do because it makes them more money from their season ticket holders and more money from their TV partners. So I think the 3-6 model also protects more rivalries and cycles you through the conference faster. The 3-6 model is absolutely the better way to go. That they're going to end up there. But I think they have a built-in excuse with these 2 years of a 12-team trial playoff where they have they have a trial period where they can just make an excuse and say, no, we don't want to make a decision for these 2 seasons. My guess is that's what's going to happen. And then by 26, they'll have a set arrangement. They'll have a decision made because Greg Sankey is tired of this scheduling bullshit in the offseason.
I don't think it'll be 2 years, though. I really don't.
You think they'll do it this offseason and make it a 3-6 model moving forward in 25?
Yes, because if they don't, that means we'll get 1 year of Texas A&M, or Texas, Oklahoma, and then they'll abandon that for the fall.
This is why they wanted. This is why
I don't think they're going to give it to people and then take it away.
Well, but they could do it. They could do the same thing the following year and just put Texas and Oklahoma and A&M together. This year was fabricated, right? This year was just a fabricated schedule.
But then the following year, it won't be there. That's what I'm saying.
Right. What I'm saying is they could just fabricate it again in 25 and then set the schedule up for 26 to be the same for the next 10 years or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I agree with you. It could happen this year, though. It absolutely could happen this year. But ultimately, the 3-6 model,
because I think
is absolutely what it needs to be.
I think they want to show how the ratings for all these damn games that I just threw up.
I know.
And then they'll get their
That's
money they want.
Now you're just parroting Feinbaum.
Well, yeah, he's the one that told me.
He's generally a pretty smart and knowledgeable and informed guy. No, he's putting out his whole point. Feinbaum's point is we're going to show everybody we don't need the extra games to draw the ratings. And while that's great, I've never met a person who's like, that's too much money. Never met someone who said to somebody who was giving them money, no, that's enough. Stop giving me more money. Because if you add an extra game, you make more money. So,
yep.
You also protect more rivalries, which also is a pretty important thing to most of us who love the sport. So, 3-6 is coming. All they got to do is just pay off Mark Stoops and a couple other ADs to make sure they vote yes.
Mark Stoops.
Because Auburn basically bailed on that vote, if you remember, right? Nick Saban's like, no, I don't want to play a tougher schedule. Oh well.
Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, whatever happened to that guy? He's one game away from the playoff. All right, Mike, always a pleasure, my man. Congrats to A&M. I guess congrats to Mississippi State on getting their coaches. Great seasons by Missouri and Ole Miss. Didn't get a chance to talk about you guys today, but we'll talk about you guys in the December months because you guys had spectacular seasons. You deserve more conversation about how good those 2 years were, Missouri and Ole Miss. But we'll get to that as the offseason. I love you, Bo. You've been great all day. You've been telling me how right I am all day. I will absolutely shout you out, Bo. And I have walked through your football facility and your stadium down there, unlike Stephen Lasson. So that is correct. That is correct, Bo. All right. I think that's about it. Make sure you swing on over to the 440 Sports YouTube page and just give us a subscription. We got game previews and stuff over there. All kinds of SEC content. So go check that out. I know obviously that SEC podcast has got a ton of the stuff that you guys are doing. So check it out. Crack is not my
I wasn't even going to show that one.
No, you can put it up there. Crack is not my preferred smoke, you know.
No schedule is easy. Yep.
No, that's right. Don't smoke crack, everybody. For Mike, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the championship game. We'll be back next Tuesday. This has been SEC Football Live.